Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi, I have the beautiful Leah Foley from Australia with us. And hey, Leah, we're going to talk about, we're having this discussion of, does the universe have a greater plan? Is there a grand design going on here right now? And as we follow our inner guidance, that's what came to Leah. And this is what we're going to be inspired to talk about. And I mean, I was thinking the other day that I'm attached to it having a greater plan. And I was like leaning into that, and I was like, oh, but what if I'm wrong? And then I was like,
no, it's got to have a plan. It can't be like this. There has to be a reason. Yeah, even I was like, oh, I don't know the answer to that. Why are we going to have a discussion on that? Let's have a discussion on something I have an answer to. But I thought it'd be perfect because we might have slightly different aspects, but I think that there's an overall message that would converge at the end. So that's why I was excited by it, but I don't actually know where this conversation's going.
But that, I think, is kind of the key. Like, I do feel that life is supposed to be moment to moment. Right? Like, literally, that's life. Is in that moment there's the gap between choice, and then we experience the next moment, the power of now. And so we are, as things are collapsing, yet I found that I was still talking this whole, you heard me, global party, we're going from caterpillar to butterfly, right? We're all transforming, and we're all gonna be butterflies. And then Saturday, I was just, oh my gosh, what if only some of us get to be butterflies and the rest of us have to stay as caterpillars? And you know, and then I was just like, I'm attached to that idea. And then
it's good insight. I mean, like, I used to think there was like definite plan, and I like to plan, so that made me feel really comfortable, you know. But I guess as I go, and you're right, the more that you can live life moment to moment, which I could do it more now. I mean, I still get attached to, you know, knowing how things are meant to pan out or what's the most efficient way to do something. But I'm less attached to it now than I used to be, maybe because I trust myself more, or I trust my connection to intuition, or that somehow it will all work out in my favor anyway. So I don't need to know every single step. But yeah, so I used to be very much so about the plan. And so now it's sort of evolving. But I don't want to let go of the idea that, like, there's not someone looking out for us in some way. Like, we're just left to make this huge mess by ourselves, and we're just going to either die or grow from this. I don't know. It feels a bit lonely, I think, like that there isn't something greater or connected to something greater.
Right. Well, as we're talking about being something creative, connected to something greater arrived in the comments. Miss Shaman Ra just came to say hello, Leah. So that sense of, we've got Australia to Canada all the way to Netherlands. So there is, you know, a triangular connection going on at the moment through this greater connection, the internet. How that works, we don't know.
Is it possible to add her, or is it too difficult?
Yeah, no.
Her insight as well would be awesome.
Dun dun dun. Let's up at
the moment, but you know.
Yeah, no, that's well, that's, I think that's okay. If she wants to jump on, if you can, Reiki, that would be great. I feel that that's some of the conversation, though, right? Is this these ideas that we have, and a lot of people have various ideas of what they think might be going on, other than what's going on. But whether that's going on
negatively or, you know,
we don't know. I was taking pictures this weekend. There was all kinds of planes flying, and I mean, but there's in Prince Edward Island, we don't, like, it's not like we have a busy airport, right? Because there's very few planes. So I was like, that seems really weird. And the sky was so clear, and the trails, I'm like, this one looks like a spine, and it's shooting up, and I didn't even think it was near where the airport was, right? And I was just like, Now, again, some people will say chemtrails, others will say, others were saying, no, it's just a regular trail. And I'm just going, again, is it possible that things are going on around us, which they're, that we are just oblivious to? And that's the only thing maybe we're experiencing now, is things that we didn't notice before.
Yeah, definitely I've noticed. I don't have any set ideas on what's happening behind the scenes. Like, yes, definitely something not to our benefit could be happening, and something to our benefit could be happening. I'm not really attached to any of it, but I have a lot of friends that are attached to different reasons. But I do know the thing that I've noticed, though, is that something isn't quite right with the way that society or economy is structured at the moment, because we can't handle a month or 2 or 3 months of not keeping the economy going, and then everything's starting to sort of fall apart. And the longer with just being, the more it looks like everything's falling apart. And so then something about the structure isn't flexible enough to handle something like that. So then something needs to evolve. That's where I'm looking at. So
yeah. Well, so in that one, if there is a grander plan, the idea that everything is collapsing, because it looks that way to me, right? That we couldn't get the governments to agree to do anything ever, and then, right?
Now they're wanting to sue each other. There's something about someone wanting to sue China or something. It's like, oh, okay, just keeps going downhill. But anyway, yeah, gotta blame someone, I guess.
Well, yeah, for a while there, I thought that they finally, just were all going to agree that didn't matter how it happened. We're all having this experience. And the money that, governments are saying, okay, we're going to pass out here, we're going to pass out here to help businesses. And some people have the same thing, like, well, where were you before? when you said we didn't have enough money, right? There wasn't enough money, we were in debt. And now we really are having trouble, and that's great that you're helping us. But at the same token, where is it all coming from?
Yeah, I think it's just being reprioritized. It's like when you have a tight month, certain things prioritize higher than others, and or you really, really want something to happen and you can make it happen. But the thing is that it's the thing with human nature, right? It has to get uncomfortable enough for people to really change. Like, there's not everybody's like that, sure, but there are general population, we do get complacent in a certain way of being until a wild card like this poor little virus that gets a lot of flack at the moment or something. So most people don't think it's a poor little virus, but anyway, something comes in as a wild card and changes the norm, and then suddenly the discomfort, we either adapt or crumble, I guess.
Yeah. And so I guess I have had this attachment that we're going to transform. So we're not necessarily going to die. We're going to die to our old way of being, that we were out of balance as, economy and nature. We were out of balance in, how we used our resources. I really feel like there is more than enough of everything, of anything that everybody needs, not necessarily wants. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of, maybe we could want more toilet paper.
I don't know. Can you tell me? Because I found out, so Australia's a toilet paper, right?
Right.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious, right? France was condoms and wine. And my friend from Singapore who lives here, she says Singapore, they all went to IKEA. So what was Canadian? What's Canada's?
Canada, and we followed Canada, and the States followed the toilet paper thing.
Oh, okay.
Right. And it was funny because I remember mentioning I'm sure it was Tess that was on. And I said, because the toilet paper did start in Australia, right? That was the first run.
We still don't have toilet paper in the shops, in some of our shops. But anyway.
Yeah. And then, but I think it was Colleen, she immediately identified, she goes, I know we took all the toilet paper and she's in the States. I'm like, no, you guys came after. It was Australia. It sort of went around the globe, right?
But sharing from the same to Australia. It's true. I don't know what on earth happened. But anyway, it's still a precious resource here. It's still like that.
Well, do you have a large? I mean, you're very close. You're closer in proximity to China. Do you have a large population of Chinese people living in Australia?
Yeah.
So my theory was like this, like it's like the 100th monkey. You know that theory?
Okay. Yes, I've heard of it. Yes.
Right. Well, so my theory was that the Chinese are, they were so closely knit and had the experience of the virus first. And so it was their fear of lack or, limitation. And for some reason, they felt it was the toilet paper, because it was the Chinese grocery stores in Toronto that first ran out of toilet paper.
Oh, really? Okay. That's an interesting theory. I like it. It's interesting.
So I was like, they all picked up on the vibe and they went first because it expanded, right? It was like that ripple effect. And I feel that that's sort of what's happened with this whole experience is, I keep wanting to say, how many actual cases of flu were, like in Canada, the deaths and the number of cases of flu, et cetera, were far higher last year and the years before. Yet nobody was counting down every day. We got one more, right?
Yes.
And so this emphasis has created this ripple effect of everybody wanting to be in that space, which is then putting more emphasis on it. Whereas, were you one of those people that joined like the global meditation and prayer this weekend?
No, I didn't join it, but I got a lot of invites and I thought about it. But it was my daughter's 21st birthday. So that was my main, but I did have a moment where I was like taking the second, like adding to the, I just figured that everyone was doing a great job. I didn't need to have to be the extra person. But yeah, it was nice and I did feel a difference that day, whereas the day before and the day after, my focus was very shaky. But it was like after that, for about 24 hours, it's almost like something cleared up and then, it came back. But but as you're talking about with the 100 monkeys thing and the, like it hits a certain tipping point, right? And then it starts to spread. But then I guess you could say that that's highlighting that even on a positive note, that can happen as well. Like you can get to a point where everyone's focused on a certain thing and then it just starts to spread naturally. Like I wasn't involved in the meditation, yet I felt I got benefit from it. So.
And how did your daughter's 21st go?
Good. She's over the border, and our borders, that state is closed. Our state's not, but I can't cross over. But we did it over technology, and I think, like I could still do that. Like I know the tech. She knows the tech because she's a millennial and stuff. But I'm noticing also how much this is making everyone upgrade to using tech. Just the circumstance, like my capoeira class that I go to, that's shut, and someone on the Sunshine Coast, he's now running them online. And then I'm hearing about there's yoga classes online, there's drumming classes, like everybody's upgrading to, or they're saying pivoting, but adapting. And they may not stay like that, but they're adapting for now and they're making the most of it, and they're still getting to do something that's important to them. So, there's like it's like nothing's really, really taken away from us when you think about it.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, right? Like you've done so much work in the past few years online, right?
Yep.
And same here. So for those of us that have, it hasn't really seen like a drastic shift because it's kind of like, yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Luckily, 3 years ago I changed, and then it was like it started to I found that I could do healing work where I wasn't touching people, and it was actually a benefit to my healing style or my, I don't know, energy field or something. So that's the way it went. And so it didn't bother me. But then I guess if people hadn't built that skill or tried that out, it was quite, devastating. But then now they're getting the opportunity to do that. And if we go back, I guess they've got both skills, so in the end, is it a problem? It might be just a short term, like this is a real small blip, because I don't see this. Some people say it might go on for a long time, but a lot of other people are saying we were due for an economic collapse. It's every 10 years, roughly. We were due for one anyway. We just now can blame the virus for it. It's like the victim, it's the scapegoat for like just the cycle. And that's another thing I kind of wanted to mention was like, I don't know if there's a plan for sure, like a set plan that this step's going to happen, this step, but I feel like there's a greater vision of sorts. But then there's also natural cycles, and whether they are natural cycles in nature, but we're part of nature. So in a way, even though all our things that we've created, we have cycles, we have economic cycles. I can't think of any other cycles at the moment. That's the thing I've been looking at the moment because of everything. But and then I watched some other video and they talk about that there's smaller cycles and then there's the bigger economic cycle. And then we're kind of, the way he was describing, I'm like, oh yeah, we're in that point where everything's just all the downwards converging, and we're all feeling it right now. But in the past, we have always come back up, so it's uncomfortable, but it's like a blip in a longer history time. So, and I'm looking at, there was a lot of panic a few weeks ago. When did we talk? Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, basically.
It was like eons ago. Okay, yeah. It was 2 weeks. And now, back then there was a lot of panic posts, and now it's like creative posts, like people, like kids doing some kind of gym across like the house, and and then people like posting about finding ways to exercise within your home. And it's like almost like we got over the panic and the discomfort of that first, and now we're getting to adapt. Now we're trying, and so much creativity is coming out of that, really, from that limitation.
Yeah, I think there's so much in what you just shared there that can really be expanded. Because for those that are come for the first time and they're doing something online, right? There is, there's some trials and trepidations doing this. As you said, you hadn't done healing without actually physically being there. And then you realize, oh, wow. And that's, my experience, the same thing is when you realize everything is kind of always here. I talked about yesterday is this, or test, being the lighthouse. When we're the lighthouse, we're sending out that light. We're sending out that vibe. And as each of us are in our own spaces, we think we're self-isolated. We're all connected heart to heart, right? There is global coherence. Heart math, does, tell us that they can measure the coherence of us when we all come together. It's like my friend Bruce Martin posted his readings after everybody came together and meditated. So he said good. Right? And I know some people will be like, oh, is that true? And it's like, well, you know what? For people, again, when you look at stuff like that, you start to go, oh, yeah. Or I realized when I was in the Toronto area and I would meet people in the forest and I'd say, so, 6 feet apart, 2 meters. and we'd be walking the dog and I'd say, so, like, how are you doing with this transition? And most of the time they were like, pretty good, right? And one lady, I remember her saying, she goes, am I in denial? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I am feeling pretty good, but I'm feeling they want me to feel really badly about this. And I said, well, what do you feel, right? Like, and she's like, I kind of like that I'm not having to go to work, right? I'm kind of liking that I have some time to myself. People were saying things like, it's a forced mental health break. Isn't this beautiful? The birds are coming out in downtown Toronto that we haven't seen before. So it was like, I almost felt like I was just there to kind of push them a little to the tipping point of to trust. what they were feeling, yet what they were hearing, you know, if they were tuning into that outside force, was kind of doom and gloom. But what they were feeling, and I think a lot of us are, is when we're going, this is so bad, I can do yoga online, right?
Capoeira, like you can do, like capoeira is a game where you interact a lot, but you can at least practice the stuff. And just the way, and like I said to him, oh, my speakers aren't working. He goes, you can use your phone. I said, oh, I can use my phone. And it was just like, and I said, oh, I can clear up this area now, and I can still work my body in a group, in a social setting, and still get to do something I love until this passes. Like it's like a temporary holiday of sorts. For some people, more tighter than others, but you know, yeah, it is. Yeah, and I mean, it's a good point what you're saying with her, with the person you met, because yeah, it's like that trust in yourself, regardless of what circumstances is trying to tell you, or what someone else, the news being so highly opinionated about a certain focus, and just going, yeah, okay, you've got your opinion, and this is my opinion, and I'm going to go with what I trust, especially something that feels enlivening, I think is the right word for that lady that you met. Like she felt like life, like there was a life force increase in her from having a break, you know?
Well, it's like you experienced with your daughter's birthday. You weren't necessarily tuned in, focused tuned in, but yet you experienced. And I think we are, I know we like to say there's empaths, right? And people like to say, I'm an empath. And I
say that.
Yeah. You know, but I do feel that we're all have that empathic ability because we're all connected. It's just whether or not how empathic, you know, how connected in that experience we are. And for me, I go back 3 years when I was guided to come online. And I was like, really? Like, I thought I was going to stay away from this whole internet world, right? And then this idea that was 2017 was when I first just like, oh, you're going to host this global party. We're going to call it a party. We're not going to call it a virtual summit, you know, and it's healing from the inside. And I look now and I think, well, that's really what the world's coming together to do, in the sense that those are bringing their joy out, is we are all coming together and we're having a positive experience out of it. It's like we're finding the happy moments in what seems like it isn't, you know? And then I had that outrageous idea that 1 billion people were going to be healed. And I was like, I'm going to be the expression of 1 billion people. And I thought, that might take 100 years. Who knows, right? Everybody's going to contribute. But now I kind of like, well, 6 billion could all be healed from the inside out, just like that. Like, it's like.
No, yeah, you're thinking too small. You know, what? Limit say the ceiling on who could be healed. Yeah, like the whole world. Damn it. What was I going to say? Yeah, it's true. I can't remember what I was going to say, but there was something I was following on from that. I'm going to jump back. You did talk about heart math. That's been jumping out at me. Okay. I did think about that. So heart math talks about also the power of having heart variability equals longer life. So it's not just keeping your heart beating, it's the variability in the heartbeat, like the irregular, it's regular to some extent, but there's irregularities in that. And I think that it's like, that's what keeps, you got to have that little bit of tension to work. Like, it's almost like working your body, right? You need to work it, help it to thrive. Yeah. Oh, we were going to shake, weren't we? We're going to,
yeah, we can.
Do it now. I forgot. And so it's like with your life, it's like if you had this predictable life, then you never really get to have a taste of your potential, you know? I mean, for some people, they're just self-motivated anyway, and they're going to push themselves to that point. But sometimes the times where things kind of look like they're collapsing is when you start to realize, oh, I'm a lot more capable than I thought, or I actually can squeeze this much out of my bank account and manage to survive. You know, it's just like things that you didn't think that you could do. And in that limitation, Not that you want to force yourself into limitation all the time, but that variability kind of makes life a little bit interesting, especially if it's not going to lead to anything detrimental. Like this,
right.
I do feel like this is a small blip. I know that our governments are talking about throwing heaps of money, and there's a little bit of, I guess, worry about, well, how much are you throwing, and are you saving some, and you considering, I know that we want to keep everybody well and, you know, not homeless and things like that, but are you balancing? Is there a plan? Do you have a plan? Which is back to our topic, but it's like, do our governments have a plan? Because it doesn't feel like it. They're kind of making it up as they go. Some better than others, but.
Well, I know, you know, if we want to go down there, as if they would go dun dun dun. I heard somebody say, well, what was the guy, David Bezos, whatever, the guy of Amazon. He pulled out $4 billion before this all happened, and you know, and I was like, yeah. So where's he going to spend it, right? Like, I mean, that's part of when people say, oh, all the money went here, I go, but there's nowhere to spend the money right now, right? Because if you have millions of dollars, you don't get to fly anywhere really, and there's no hotel to stay at, and there's no restaurant to go, fine dining, you know, all these things that people would have been spending money on frivolously, I even somebody that's just been spending money picking up Starbucks coffee on their way to work, or going to get dry cleaning done, or maybe grabbing a lunch out, is realizing they're spending less money, right? Yeah. So do they need to make the same amount of money? I think that's also one of the shifts that's going to happen to some of these people being at home. They're going to realize they have their joy. Maybe they did get online too and start to develop, oh, you know, I can teach here, or I can be here, or I'm only, wow, I had no idea, but you know, 50% of my income was actually going to making sure that I got to work and everything related to going to work. So, maybe I can relook at things, you know? So I think there's fear of death, fear of losing money, and fear of change are the three crucial fears that are being transformed right now.
And they're all about survival. I mean, all of it, even toilet paper is about survival I guess, survival of your current level of comfort, I guess. I'm not sure. But anyway, we have a lot of toilet paper, but my husband was talking, there's none in the shops. I think next time I see one, I'm grabbing one. I'm like, there's only 2 of us in this house. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, as you're talking, you know how you talk about the Amazon guy, I can't remember his name. I did look up something because I watched a documentary about Warren Buffett. Randomly, and realized how much he's a really adorable old man, really, who just was doing what he loved and actually didn't care that much about the money. He just cared about numbers and was doing something he loved. And when his wife, who I think he was parted from at that point, passed away, and she was a real advocate for charity and things like that, and she'd been bugging him for years saying we're really blessed, we should be giving the money. And he apparently went into a dark place, and he came out of it a few months later, and he donated big chunk of his wealth to the Bill Gates thing, because they're good friends, of course, even though a lot of stuff he does, and there's people for, and his children who all run charities. So, and he's given all that money away. And then I don't know, because I was looking at what Warren Buffett, and I had like this long list, and that guy from Amazon gave 4.6 million to charity.
Yeah.
Billion? No, million. I don't know. They have a lot of money. But anyway, so like all these people, and I looked it up today, I think, and all these people are giving money away, like people who are very wealthy. I mean, maybe they're getting a tax break, maybe not, who cares? Like the act of, but where's the money going? Like, you know, people say, the wealthy should give the money away. And I'm like, but they are. So what's happening? You know, is it actually us consumers that haven't really sat with ourselves and gone, how much are we spending? And should we rearrange our lives to not need to spend as much and feel like we're running out of money all the time?
That's an excellent point. And I think there's most definitely, right? Again, a lot of people are used to looking outside themselves and judging others, right? And to me, that's one of those ones of, if you have all the money right now, that would be the redistribution for sure, that you're giving it out. It's like when you're making, let's say, $4 billion and you give away $4 million.
It could have been billion.
Yeah, but I'm just going to, for the example, if they're making, let's say, $1 billion and they're giving away $1 million, it's really only like, a tenth of 1% of their income. So that's kind of like someone giving $1, almost, if they're making 100,000. It's really, or $10. It's really not that significant in percentages. However, if that's what they are all decide, they have all this money and resources now, like some of the manufacturing and businesses that are reshifting. I heard, did you see, I posted it yesterday. Did you ever watch, I never watched it, but there was a TV show called The Office.
Yes. Which one though?
Well, the tall guy, John, not Steve Carell, but he just started Such Good News or So Good News or whatever on his YouTube. And it was great. I posted the one on it, and he's again focused on the good news of everything. He's like, I think we're all tired. That was episode 1. I think we're all tired of all this other stuff. Let's focus on the celebration of the healthcare workers, the celebration of things that are going on. And that's one of the things he focused on, was that some of the sporting organizations, one of the baseball manufacturers that used to manufacture all the baseball uniforms has gone into making masks out of the baseball material they used to the stripes. So they're making masks. And the hockey guys are now going into making face shields, right? Because instead of for hockey making the shields for all the kids and everybody, they're now saying we can make it for the healthcare workers, right? And so it's like, okay, so there's adaptation going on here, right? And that is co-creative, and that's cooperative, and that's the greater good of everybody, which I think
are doing in service, right? Like, they're not doing it for the fun. Like, if everything was fine, they wouldn't make those random face masks. They're doing it in service to someone. Yeah.
So if we each get inspired and we're following these new ideas, and I feel that helps, true or not true, open people's hearts. Because I kind of feel like that's, in the sense, when we talk about heart math and the variabilities, is I know at one point in time in my life, like, I was very much into the workforce, and the concept of like living on Prince Edward Island or just being chill would have been like, who the frig would want to do that? Like,
being guided by higher source, like lifting 1 billion people from the inside out into butterflies.
Literally, my father, who's still alive, he's 90, and we had this discussion all last year, because he is just like, no, it was interesting because we had really come together. And when I was finally 2018, the end, when I went to Costa Rica, and it was like, literally, I was on the mountaintop there, and I was having these like biblical revelations, right? I remember one morning I woke up and I was like, what's the story of Moses? I said, because all of a sudden I feel like I don't want to tell anybody anything. I don't want to be leading them to the promised land if they never get out. Right? It was just like, and it was all this, things. So then it was very interesting, and it was like release. And then at that point, when I came back, it was really like I had a big death to who I was, sort of. And at that point, my father and I, we were like, it was really like butterfly and caterpillar. Mm-hmm. And there, for some reason, it went from having a meeting point to no. And that again was a part of me being able to say, are my wings going to be strong enough, to fly out of the cocoon? It's like, am I going to be able to do this? Because we all like to, well, most people like to kind of help others, right? Have you ever done that? You wanted to, come on, I can help you heal.
It doesn't end well, but anyway, yes.
Right?
Experience. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I really felt that this past year was for my family to take a step back and go, you are just way too far out there, trusting your inner guidance and believing that everything's going to be good. But that's what I needed in order for my wings to be strong enough to fly and be confident, really. I really am confident that I think Rachel was saying from Israel, maybe the whole idea of Moses was, and how I was feeling, was that was Moses's mission. And that for a lot of my life, I've been doing so many things, but this is the part now, this is my time that health has been such an event. Even in my inner guidance, that book's about to come out, Trust Your Inner Guidance in 10 Days. And even though I did the material 3 years ago, right? And we were going through it and I'm like, wow, I've been talking about health there. I'm talking about things that really do overlap what's going on here. But I didn't know, like I was saying, to me, I had to trust that health was something that I felt was natural, that it's something that does come from within. And I thought, isn't it interesting that I was using that analogy, in the journey, and now it's coming out. And that's what, to me, is what everybody's concerned about. Doesn't matter how much money you have, if you still feel you're threatened by something, right? Yeah. Doesn't matter how great the food you're eating, if you're still feeling threatened, or what exercise. It's like, it's this inner knowledge that says something, like you said, something you feel like there's a greater plan, even though you don't know what it is.
Right. There's possibility, or it's going to work out somehow. You may, like, I think people get stuck in the plan, and that's in a plan, and then they lose touch with that greater connection. But I think of that greater plan as maybe just a collective or higher vision or desire, collective desire, more than like it's a plan, it's going to be this way, you're going to do this. That's when you lose touch, right? When you go, it has to happen this way. It's not happening this way. I'm going to just... No, I'm not doing it now. I'm just going to throw it all. But how you were talking about, like, you've said it several times about, like, oh, you had doubt, or you sort of questioned yourself. I think, like, that's kind of like the cycles, right? Like, you have the confident, and then there's points where you have down. And it's the people who are like, so confident their way's the right way. They're the ones that are the fanatics, right? I mean, doubt is a benefit to, I think Osho talks about it, that's a gift of humanity, to doubt, to be able to doubt. I think that's what he said. Maybe I'm wrong about the way he said it, but anyway, there is, like, I think there's a benefit, because when you question, it's like you're having the down, but in the end you keep going, and that momentum keeps going, and it's all right. I think when you're so set that it's going to be this way, that's where the religious wars start happening, because there's a one way and then two don't meet, and then they can't find an adaptation together in some way. Maybe they're adapting in their own way, but it doesn't feel quite right. But anyway.
Well, I think that's so, it's so true, right? Because it's like that back to attachment. When you're attached to one outcome, you are the fanatics, because you just literally have the glasses on and says, this is the way it is. And that was, so in that attachment, as though my wings had gotten strong and I was fluttering away, I still have the attachment of the story that in this transformation, Destiny, Faith, and I would all come back into this, wonderful connection again. And then on Saturday, it was just all of a sudden, it was like, oh my gosh, the vision that came to me was the movie from the Avengers, right? When they blow up the bridge between Asgard, and Earth, and you can't go back to Earth, right? And I was like, oh, they're on the other side, and I can't get to them. And it was just like this massive, like, oh my God, that's not the plan. Then plan isn't that we're coming back together. And it was just like, oh, again, the attachment, right? The attachment to this idea versus just being in the moment. So then it was like, then I just seemed to tap into this whole, it felt like Mother Earth planet thing, like, gee, all this I've been here for you the whole time, Mother Earth. Where, I've been here. You guys have been trampling on me, but I'm still here, right? And it's great that you're noticing that nature's popping up, but I've always been here.
Yeah, nothing, there's no media, it's nothing, and I was actually saying that we're now all working from home, like my work, and we're not in the office anymore. I don't think, maybe there's one or two people, but we're doing it all via like computers, and we're all calling each other, and we're having team meetings and finding ways, and that someone's doing a baby picture or something. So that they're trying to find ways to keep the team thing. Mm-hmm. But I was saying to someone in the office, said, there's no world war here. Like, back when the World War happened, like factories were getting bombed, infrastructure was being decimated. Once we figure out whatever we need to figure out, which it looks like, to me, it looks like there's an opening now, and they're figuring out what they need to do. We'll see. We'll come back, and all the infrastructure's still there. Everything's still there. It's not going to take much to start up. There is going to be a dent. I don't understand I'm still trying to understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. The whole economy thing, I guess I understand nature better because it makes sense. It's in the now. Like, economy kind of is all about futures and this and that. And I'm just like, it's true. Like this whole made up world. But anyway.
It is a made up world. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, way back when we did have gold to back up the money. Right? There was silver to back up certain things. There is none, right? It literally is a big monopoly game. And yet people in every country are still feeling like they're responsible somehow to pay the debt back. And now the company, and they've just said, oh, well, we'll just take another $1 trillion, right? We'll just, whatever it is, more paper money. It's like, it's like just, we're handing it out. And in a sense, I feel like that belief system, as you were saying, is it maybe just us individuals, consumers, the everyday person that has to transcend their level of abundance, in that there's so much more? Because, I remember I've talked to people about wealth transformation, and I said, like, the rich people still have to pay bills, right? They still pay bills. They just don't think, oh, that, oh my gosh, I'm paying this much on my mortgage. Or they go, I'll just buy another house, right? They just trust that whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I said, they still have issues. It's like, I remember Tony Robbins had his biggest breakdown the day he took his first company public, and he made something like, I don't know, whatever, $6 million in one moment. And he came home and he realized he didn't really like his relationship in his life. And that was like sort of the end of his first marriage. So, I feel that many people that have been on this journey of self-discovery have had their ups and downs, and they've noticed them. Then there's others that have been very spiritually focused, and they've always believed from tragedy leads to triumph. I think we talked about crisis leading to opportunity. I think some people that get really sick, right? You've seen that with friends or family or around, that someone that gets cancer, but that's their turning point. That's like they come out of the cancer and they say, my whole life is changing now, because they came face to face with that fear that they were going to die. And so
they reprioritized. They started to reprioritize what was important. And it sometimes does take something in your face for you to go, oh, wait a second. Something's not working here. And the more that you go, I want to blame someone else or something or a circumstance for where I'm at, or whether you want to go, well, maybe I didn't set up my structures. I don't know what the right word is. It's not smart enough. With integrity. It just doesn't have enough integrity to hold me. And it doesn't have to be wealth, does it? Like, you don't have to have necessarily savings in the bank, although the Barefoot Investor, there's all these books out there now looking to help people clear their debt, give yourself that rainy day fund so that you're always supported. Right. But it's like, do you have a strong network that you can support you? I know we have to do the social distance, but it's like, when you have people to rely on, it's not just you by yourself anymore. It doesn't have to be like having a yacht that determines, and the yacht's useless right now because you can't go out of your house. I don't know if you can over there, but we can't go out of our house. So, or we shouldn't be going out of the house for non-essential purposes. But anyway, yeah, so it's like, do you have that structure set up? And this is a perfect opportunity to go, instead of like, oh, I'm so bad, or it's someone's fault, China's fault, or whatever. It's like, well, my structure's not designed to support me when there's a dip in my life, and how can I improve it?
Right. And I somehow feel like so much of my life has been set up for this. So beginning of last year, right, that I got the guidance to close down my website and close everything, and just stop asking. Like, when people say, so what do you charge? It was like, I just give my services. And someone taught me, it's like, this is your ministry. And I was like, okay, oh, cool. I got a word for it now. And I said, if someone say, well, I got to give you something. It's like, well, if you really feel you want to donate, fine. There's, go ahead. It was for me to trust that the universe had this. I didn't know how it was all going to happen. And one of the most amazing things was I got one of my friends who I didn't know. It's like you, Leah. You're on the other side of the virtual world, and I consider you a dear friend, but I had never met this dear friend. And she called me up and said, I'd come back from Costa Rica and I was in Toronto. She goes, I really love, what are you doing now? Are you going back to PI? What are you doing? Are you couch surfing? And I'm like, well, no, I'm kind of like whole house surfing now. It just seems like, and she's like, well, I have a beach house down in North Carolina, and I'd love you to go put your healing energy there. And I'm like, what, like never on my bucket list, didn't even know North Carolina, it kind of existed. Like, and the thought that came to me first was, this is the States, which party, are they a Republican or a Democrat, way, and then I was just like, okay, inner guidance. Okay, you want me to go, it'll be fine. And so she'd said it was like 6 weeks, because she always had a renter coming in at 6 weeks. Well, by the time I got there, she was like, well, obviously God has a different plan, because that renter that I've had for years has decided not to rent this year. So I was then there, and in a sense, I was standing on the balcony looking at the ocean across the way, going, wow, when my father kind of came at me through an email saying, I really think you lost your way when you left Kodak back in 91. And he sent me, it was just like, where did this come from? Because he's seeing my daughters are completely, have in his mind differences of how he would have them now that they were staying with him. And I just thought, wow, isn't this perfectly timed again? Because I'm standing here enjoying this beautiful view, and realizing I actually didn't buy the beach house. I actually didn't pay to rent the beach house, but I'm actually in this space of peace and calm when you're trying to say to me, well, because you trusted your inner guidance and did things differently, it hasn't worked out. And I was just kind of like, oh, I think maybe I'm in the right place, because it was all perfectly timed. Like, I am right here recognizing that the universe does supply, because, as you said, our network, our connections, when we trust the person that we don't even know can be giving somebody something these days, right? But, people are doing things for healthcare workers. They're saying, we're bringing you free meals. Yeah. We're going to cover your utilities. We're going to help you out here. So other people are showing up, and this idea that it's just between you and I, a transactional one-on-one, I've been feeling for years that had to collapse, because we're all in this together. So when we trust, it's like, I might be here for you, and you're there for Tess, and Tess is there for, Sonia, and it's like, we're all doing what we need to do, but it's trusting there's a greater connection and a greater plan. The universe has a greater plan.
Well, but that's like the economy, right? Like the economy is money moving, but in this way, it's just something's moving, but not money.
Right.
Like the trade of what we normally trade for money, and money has its purpose. To my perspective, is that I think it's one of the key things that has stopped people invading each other and having that kind of collaborative global thing where we're, you know, sending goods here and there. It's like an agreement between us, and it's like, well, you're helping me out that way and we're helping you out that way, and maybe they're all different currencies and all that. That's just all a big mess to my head, but you know, like there is some type of collaborative thing. But going back to what you're saying, how you were there kind of looking at this kind of amazing environment and then being told something different, but it's like the power of perception, right? The power of your perception. I think I was talking about it with Tess the other day. We're having a chat, and it was like, yeah, when my husband and I have an argument and afterwards we're reflecting, it's like, no, you said this. I'm like, I never said that. And it's like the amount of stuff that we reflect, and it's like, no, I never said that. It's like, you said that. It's like, no. And it's like these two people, we're there with each other, but we're not there with each other. We've got like our own blinkers about it.
Right.
And yeah, it's like your father's like, he's got his perception about that. And then also the power of your journey to be able to go, I hear you, but no. Like I'm not swayed by that, but I can hear you say that, but I'm not swayed. And I could hear when you're talking, because some people talk about it and you can hear like there's this charge, but there was no charge when you talked about it. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. You know, like I don't agree with you, but there wasn't like this pain about it that I do hear underneath the surface when people talk about it and they kind of make out they're okay. It's like you've moved on and you're like, yeah, no, but
there was that pain. It was like that last root at that time, although at that moment, right, it was like saying, wow, there still was this, you know, wanting to reach him to say, don't you understand that we're in different places and it's okay, you know? And it was in that bit of that process of feeling that last little root of, I somehow needed your approval for what was going on. And that was, I think that was when I talk about the fact that my wings had to get stronger, right? To come out of the chrysalis, because it was like, can I, if our whole life is really about ourselves and our own journey and what we perceive, and we die and we take nothing with us, can I literally die to everything that I've believed to be true about this world, in that sense, family, you know, and that idea, and trust what's coming to me that's bringing me joy? Or do I feel like I've got to do something again to make someone else feel a little bit better about what I'm doing? But it isn't just freeing like the butterfly. So
yes, that's what I was thinking when you talk about butterfly freedom. That's what it's representing, right? When you talk about the chrysalis or the caterpillar moving into the butterfly has, you know, instead of being stuck on the ground or, you know, linear kind of, like butterfly has multi-dimensional movement, really. It's like true freedom rather than limitation.
Yeah. And what would it be like if the grand plan was that we're all going to be butterflies and we all had the freedom to have our own personal, as I say, best only world, that your best only, everybody had individualized, unique world that you got to experience and trust that everything you needed was coming true. And every one of us could accept and appreciate that each person's world was a little different. And it was okay, instead of wanting everybody to be, you know, doing things and thinking things or agreeing, you know, that it had to be one way. So here we're going to agree that we're all going to be different, but we're going to be in cooperative in that space of freedom to be.
Yeah. And it kind of like, as you're talking, I was thinking it's like that 100 monkeys thing again, right? When we talked at the beginning. So it's not about like having to heal someone or make sure that they know you need to be living your best life. It's just like each person working on their own, and then that inspires the next. But and that's how I felt with the global party. It was almost like as you kept building it, it just started to just say, and then someone would contact someone, and it would just spread naturally. And then the what is it? The energy or the excitement just sort of built as each person got involved, rather than you need to do it this way, and we all need to be happy, and it's just like trusting. As long as you keep working to your inner truth, in your heart, I think that's the best way to put it. It's like if you keep going, that energy will, and then if enough people in a pocket do it, it just starts to go to the other side. Like, you in Canada and Prince Edward Island, and it's happening in Australia, people start leaving the toilet paper alone. Like, it's just like, it starts spreading.
Well, and joy and love is more contagious than it's a much higher vibe, right? Than this thing. Like, I feel like I'm Harry Potter, the he that shall not be named. That's it. It shall not be named. It's named enough, and I'm just that thing is has no name.
Poor little virus. Poor little virus. So you were talking before about like what was it? The greater plan will supply for you and things like that. So I guess we're probably getting up to like the end of the conversation soon, but I would like to unpack a little bit about what the universe or the greater plan, the universe will supply you. Sorry, that's what you said. It's right. Like, but what would the universe kind of represent for you? Like, because we use that term a lot, right? But it's like, what's your version of the universe?
Well, so I feel like this idea of the universe supplies is like when I'm true to whatever I'm being guided to do, it's almost like, you want to say it's a holographic universe or virtual reality. There's something else there. I love to use the analogy of video games because, so many parents have said, when they get off the games, right? I've only ever played Pac-Man. So I
good game.
That's about it. But somebody created a programmer, or a team of programmers created this video game, right? And then people go to play the game, and they get, in a sense, consumed by the game. They want to be in the game, and they're trying things. And some people, give up and think, this is too hard. I don't want to play the game. Others are stuck on level 1. Others are continuing leveling up, and they're doing shortcuts and, whatever the heck it is. And they're in that. Yeah. And so what if that's really what the universe is? It's just these infinite possibilities that exist in this scope of we're having this experience, and we have decided, we've just forgotten that we're just here to have the experience of the game.
Okay, that's a good analogy. So then for you, like, the universe is like the virtual world.
Yeah, it's just like that anything is possible. I don't really know, because even every one of us that has every belief that we have is a belief. So, my one girlfriend, she was saying, I believe God is is in a male figure, right? You'll hear someone else will say, no, I believe God is male, female. I don't believe he's a figure at all. I believe it's like oxygen, it's like this presence, right? And it's like, well, instead of us arguing about it, right? Or why don't we just
semantics?
Yeah, like, okay, whatever works for you. Works for you, right? It's just that in the experience of the moment, to me, is really where life is, because it's like when I was in Costa Rica and at the end of February, I'm getting book a flight home March 3rd to Toronto, and people around me are Americans and Canadians that are down there for the winter are going, what do you want to do that for, right? Like, it doesn't start to get warm till April, and I'm kind of going, yeah, like, there was a little resistance on that one because, I'm walking around in my bathing suit enjoying this tropical vegetation thinking, yes, no. But I was wise enough to trust my inner guidance. So I booked it. March 3rd, I was back in Canada. I was ahead of the whole experience. I was here to watch everything down, where people that stayed in Costa Rica were starting to flip out and freak out as flights were being canceled and rerouted. And I still have a friend down there who there's not going to be a flight out until May 31st now. They've closed. So, that's their experience. Right. And I always feel like it's when we get stressed out about an experience and we want it to change, that attachment, right? It's like, but it's supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
That is where I consider, like, why are you holding on to that? Right. It's like me feeling the grief or the sadness and feeling the emotions and feeling them. Right. And just letting them out so I can be that almost like open water spout. That's what it felt like on Saturday. and all this emotion coming out and then going, wow, it feels like I lost 1,000 pounds. And then there's a space again.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I guess I just want to highlight, because it might have got missed for people who maybe don't feel like they have intuition, or, it's just like, and like also the idea of intuition being like this certainty, and it's not really. It's just that you get this hit, and it often doesn't make, like, even like the hit for today's theme, I was like, really? All right, well, we're going to go with it. But, it wasn't what I thought we'd be talking about, but okay. And it's been awesome. It's been everything anyway. But yeah, it's like, it's not about certainty, but then but you're clear. I guess you're clear enough. It doesn't mean all the other emotions don't come up and want to cloud it, but you just keep holding to it, and then you follow it, and then you find out afterwards. You don't know everything. You're not clear why and all this stuff. You find out afterwards, but you just follow the hit, because it's almost like instead of being connected that, you're connected to something beyond.
Yeah. It's just step by step, right? It's that idea that we have to have, like, even law of attraction. Well, if I think of a blue car, I can get a blue car. Like, that's what I'm going for, right? But that's still in a box of our own ideas.
You might not have ever wanted a blue car. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I find that inner guidance, or what I share, is that inner guidance takes you out of the box. So
yes,
when I first left Toronto in 2014, we felt guided to go, but if we had our choice, we would have wanted to go west or north. But when we tuned in, it was like, go this way. And we ended up in Prince Edward Island. And that was the beginning of me realizing that surrendering to your inner guidance was way better than me figuring it out. Because it did have a lot of, what, but in that same, every time there was that, what's going to happen? And then you realize, it worked out, right? It's like you're growing stronger muscles. Your inner guidance muscle is becoming stronger. And then you're realizing, wow, it's like children, when they're little, right? They play, and I don't think they're thinking, are you going to be here for me? When I'm finished playing, like, what's happening next? They're playing. They're in that play. And then we've taught them out of it.
Yes.
We started to put all the parameters and boundaries and structure and belief systems in place. And what if the greater plan is just to free ourselves of all these beliefs that a lot of us have done anyways? Isn't that the work you do? Right?
Yes, but I still have stuff, like, every so often I'm like, how, like, you're going blah, 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 and then either someone challenges you, or you're writing it out and you're looking at what you're writing going, how on earth did I believe this was something logical? But it just felt so true to believe something like, you can't do it, you can't handle it, I'm so overwhelmed right now. And you write it out and you're like, oh, yeah, it's just finishing a course. I've just got 3 courses, not one, and I just do them one step at a time. But it's almost like you get swept away by the panic, I guess, the inner panic, like the toilet paper rush or something, the gold rush, toilet paper gold rush, you know. But yeah, you said this. I want to re-say it because I don't want it forgotten. But what was it? Surrendering to your guidance is better than figuring it all out. It's like definitely way better. Like my mind like is very certain about some things. Like it's gonna look this way, and then when I tune in, it's like, nah, it's like that, and I'm like, oh, all right. And then when I do that, it's like all works out, and I'm like, oh, okay. Obviously, I don't know. I think I know sometimes, but I don't actually know. And without connecting to something beyond, almost like I'm cheating myself out of some experience by wanting, I don't know what it is, trying to be certain, be safe, be surviving, or like make it through so they don't have to experience an experience I don't want to experience. You know, like shame or whatever. But it's like when you actually just let go, it's not the problem. It's not the thing you need to focus on. There's something beyond. And then you're talking about the computer game. It's a great analogy because it's like there's general rules. Like there's general rules of, you know, structures. But the way that you navigate through is up to you.
Right.
You know, so there is sort of something, there's a greater structure. So maybe that's what I want to sort of say. Maybe it's not a plan as in a step-by-step plan, but there's a greater structure, and then how you want to navigate through that is your choice. And if you want to shoot yourself in the foot or dig a hole for yourself, fine, you know, like, you know, we're here when you want to dig yourself out of it, I guess. But yeah, it's like how you want to get through, and you can benefit yourself, or you can do it the hard, long way to get to the end, or you could do it the easy, short way. Like there is no way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a few years back, I met 3 gorgeous U.S. Marines. Okay. And I say gorgeous because their souls just radiated, and they were no longer, they were out of the forces. And they were like, what, you know, we got into the story, you know, what, you can't buy guns just in like Walmart in Canada? I'm like, no, it's only it's a special treat, just only in the USA, you know. And as we're having this discussion, I was first coming from this kind of righteous, you know, bit of like, no, we don't do the gun thing, you know, and we don't necessarily do the war thing like you guys, right? Kind of coming from that part. And as I was talking with them, I realized that they loved being a Marine when they were in the Marines. They loved the camaraderie. They loved the exercise. They loved the you know, the whole experience was their experience. And then it allowed me to see, like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of guys that, you know, used to like to play Army in the sense, you know, that's what they were going to do. They were signing up to go play Navy. I'm going to play in the Navy ship and I'm going to do all these things. They just never expected that they were going to have to actually maybe kill somebody in real life, right? Or have that experience. And so that really helped me to see, wow, I'm judging, you know, being this righteous, judgmental, there's war is, you know, but maybe they said they wouldn't have wanted to be in war, but they loved the other part of the experience. And who am I to say you can't have that experience? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that made me start to realize that some of these things that I used to think were like, well, we were all just peaceful, you know.
We're all gonna be like contemplating our navel in like a cave somewhere. Yes.
Right. And then I was like, yeah, if everybody could just do what they like to do and everyone was okay with it, wouldn't that like free a lot of our, like, that sense of judgment, that sense of righteousness, that sense of, you know, these so-called rules that we make, that if we just trust in here, those are naturally, I do feel we're naturally respectful. It's like someone was saying to me the other day how they were spending more time being attentive to the grocery workers, right? And when they're going through. And it made me the kind of giggle because I was like, well, I guess for some people, it's the first time they're seeing the essential workers, right? Mm-hmm. It's the first time they're noticing the garbage man or the grocery clerk. Whereas, you know, I do my best, like when they pick up the garbage in the morning, I'm at the door saying, thank you very much, you know, have a great day. Because I want them to know that I'm grateful that they're picking up my garbage.
Yes.
And I'm not having to
do it, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you know, if I was to go to a checkout counter, I would be, if I noticed, you know, sometimes you notice things, right? And are you okay? Was it no, you're not feeling well? Like those noticing. So I think if everybody's starting to notice people and see each other and say, well, I'm glad it's them doing this versus me or whatever. So you have more compassion, then that's huge, because that's that space of starting to trust and accept that we can be kind and considerate and see others for who they are versus who we perceive them to be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess this whole event's kind of highlighting how much we are dependent on like other people. Like it's not like the food comes and wraps itself and shows up at, like, you know, and then this supermarket built itself, you know, right, and suddenly supplied. And it's kind of like, it's the same with the, you know, the wealthy people. Like a lot of their wealth, like we talk about how much they've got, but it's more like their asset wealth, not their income, right? And right, it's like that asset wealth is needed to generate the money to feed all the workers that are, you know, under their conglomerate or whatever they've got, because that's a little bit beyond my understanding. But you know, like it's like everybody's kind of dependent on each other. It might seem unfair about certain things, but it's like, do I want to run like a multi-million-dollar company? No, like let Warren Buffett do it. I don't want to look at those numbers. I don't even understand. I'll be just like the colorful. Yeah, it's like when the horse racing, I'm like, oh, the pink one. That's nice. You know, like, I don't know much about anything of that, so I'm not interested in it. But yeah, just focus on what you like to do, and there's who gets to judge except yourself about whether it's fulfilling to your life or not. And I think that that's the best way. I don't know if there's a like everyone has to follow the plan, or like a collective desire. But when you do tap into the collective, things get easier, right? And you feel more fulfilled in general. And usually you do it through your own heart, like through what brings you joy. Mm-hmm. And it naturally has that innate order. You don't need to have made it ordered. And I think my coach often says, it's just imperfectly perfect. And I'm like, yes. And we're both perfectionists, so it's kind of like a joke between us. But, you know, yeah, it's just like it doesn't have to actually be symmetrical, but there's this, it's got integrity. It works in its own way. So, yeah.
So maybe that's a good way to say it, is does the universe have a greater plan? And it's for us to accept the perfection of imperfection.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? And to trust that in that process, everybody's going to receive what they need for their own personal experience, because who are you or I or anybody else to know what that person is experiencing? Especially like, okay, so this one's coming to me now. Mental health, right? It's been a big topic of conversation. And I've been feeling like mental health is sort of happens before physical issue happens, right? But there's been this awareness now that people are being, I always say like they're in between two different broadcasts, just kind of like what's going on now. You know, they could be listening to you and I going, oh, really? It's really okay, you know, or the global part. And then they turn on the news and the news is saying dun, dun, dun. And they're aware of both these things. So this one is like, oh, now I'm going to spiral down into this emotion, and I'm empathetic, right? And I'm noticing this emotion. So like Saturday, I'm grieving. And then next day I'm back to there, and we go, oh, see, you're up and you're down and you're up and you're down. And it's like, well, is there something wrong with that? Or is that just being in the experience of life, and we've now labeled it something, right? It's like I always, the same thing when people say they're sick, I go, are you sick, or is your body releasing something that doesn't exist there anymore? Like, is your nose running because it wants to get the virus out? Are you coughing because you're trying to expel the, you want to have your body work, not suppress your body so it's appearing like it's perfect, right? There's a reason we breathe in and exhale.
That's a whole other time. I think we should schedule another call, because I reckon we could go an hour just talking on that. But yeah, but I will say this though, I feel like, well, the one key thing is, are you attached to something or are you resistant to something, is where it really will cause a strain on your being in some way. If you're really resistant to experiencing a certain thing, or you're really attached to have a certain way and not the other, that's when that real strain is. If you're surrendering, like how you're saying, surrender to guidance, the body works itself out. Like, I don't believe, this, I think we should talk about this on another topic. Yeah, I'm not everything is mental to physical. There's also physical to mental as well, because you can have a car accident, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good example, because that's a really external thing, but it can affect your mental health, right? But definitely, emotions, like it's not acknowledged in the medical system enough yet about the emotional impact of stuff. And I could have a whole story about that for myself.
So we are going to just have to have a whole new conversation. Stay tuned when we're coming back, because it's you're going to have to trust your inner guidance when the Leah Jacqueline conversation is going to return, versus saying same channel, same bat time. No.
Yeah. But it was a great conversation. Like, I have to re-listen to this, but I feel like something's formed of a deeper understanding without it actually being like a set black and white answer. Yeah. It just feels like a more embodied understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that that's really the sign of the times, right? That we're all, wherever you feel guided and lean towards, we lean into that more, and we discover something, right? Whatever that something is. And as I said, you just said, we'll talk about attachment and resistance at another time, and where that goes.
And the whole aspect of, and we can talk about it in relation to the current thing, or just in general. Yes.
Yes, well, I think it's in whether in general, it's now the whole thing. Right? We're at this moment, maybe tomorrow we'll wake up and it'll be just a dream. It'll be like, oh, it's like a soap opera. Oh, it's all wiped away now. It's just a dream. There you go.
I'm in Pac-Man, being chased by those creatures or whatever. Yes.
This is wonderful. Right. Thank you so much for coming, Molly. I love you. You have a great night.
Love.
Okay, sleep well. Bye.